50 years ago, the United States landed the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, and the mission Apollo 11. The success of Apollo 11 brought great pride to the U.S. and shame to the Soviet Union. The event was unbelievable to the entire world. Apollo 11 had traveled 240,000 miles over 72 hours. The landing advanced technology in the research of space and also brought businesses such as SpaceX that work to design habitable rockets to one day send humans to different planets. And all of this happened because of the space race. The space race was the race to the moon against the Soviet Union and the United States, rivals. It started when the Soviet Union launched the first satellite into space to send radio transmissions back to Earth. However, while the Soviet Union started the space race, they overall wanted to keep their mission goals and work in secrecy, to avoid being overtaken. But after the U.S. had found out about the launch of Sputnik, the U.S. believed that the Soviet Union had superior technology advancement, causing the U.S. to start their own research in space and also launch test aircrafts. The first satellite launched by the U.S. was Explorer 1. The launch of Explorer 1 showed the Soviet Union that the U.S. was the one in power, but the Soviet Union took the launch as a challenge, and the space race started. Explorer 1's main scientific function was to measure the levels of radiation in Earth's orbit. On May 28, 1961, President John F. Kennedy declared that by the end of the decade, the U.S. would be able to successfully land the first man on the moon and return him to Earth, which happened. The first American spacecraft project was known as Project Mercury. Project Mercury was a series of 6 test flights that some reached space and came back to Earth, and others were only a 15-minute flight into Earth orbit and straight back down, but never officially touched the moon. The Apollo 11 flight crew consisted of Neil Armstrong, lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Neil Armstrong was an American astronaut and the first man to ever walk on the moon. He graduated from Purdue University and his tuition was paid by the U.S. Navy. He also was a naval aviator, test pilot, but most importantly, he was the first man to walk on the moon. As Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, he said these famous words, "One step for man, one giant leap for mankind." When Neil Armstrong said this, he meant that even though one man had just taken one step, the step would change the world forever. Next is Buzz Aldrin, the Apollo 11 lunar module pilot. He and Neil Armstrong were the first to walk on the moon. A fun fact is the iconic Toy Story character Buzz Lightyear was inspired by Apollo 11. Finally, Michael Collins. He has been in space twice, and during the Apollo mission, he flew the command module Columbia around the moon while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. Right after the successful launch of Apollo 11, the space race of course ended. The U.S. had regained their lost hope and supreme power. After the landing, the Soviet Union was in so much denial that they claimed the space race didn't exist in the first place. The Soviet Union went on to explain that they were not really looking for the goal to get to the moon. However, they were more focused on building and sending revolutionary satellites into space. However, it is very highly suspected that the Soviets might just be claiming that they were not in the race to avoid the loss of some of their pride. Now every day scientific discoveries are being made on Earth and in space, all because of Apollo 11. Because Apollo 11 was such a success that many people are building businesses off of space and opening jobs for people, always bringing new ideas to the table to what the future holds. Such as Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX, design and testing rocket models, recording data to help future test flights. Not to mention today, all main countries are joining together in advanced research development and also bringing new ideas to other teachers and astronauts. All of these tests and ideas are being created today because of one event that took place a long time ago, Apollo 11. Elon Reeve Musk is a South African-born American interpreter and businessman who founded X.com in 1999, but later to be known as PayPal. Elon Musk is also the CEO of Tesla Motors. The recovery of Apollo 11 is a very planned event. At an altitude of about 4,500 miles, Apollo 11 passed in the Earth's shadow and 12 minutes later. The command module CM separated from the service module that performed an evasive maneuver to avoid interfering with the re-entry process. Apollo 11 has 3 main parts: the cabin for the 3 astronauts, the only part that returned to Earth, a service module to hold food, water, and other supplies, and a lunar module that had 2 stages within itself to land on the moon. One of the many needed parts of the Hornet module is the heat shields. The heat shields could sustain the heat of the recovery. The Hornet was still streaming towards the splashdown point, but it had launch recovery helicopters already approaching their operational stations. As the Hornet came closer to the water, 2 parachutes were deployed to slow down its rate of speed, as well as a huge orange raft so the module can float on the surface. The aircraft landed in the Pacific Ocean 900 miles southwest of Hawaii. In conclusion, Apollo 11 changed many things in the world, such as giving hope, pride, building dreams, businesses, and opening jobs for more and more people. And space is enormous. So much is impossible to explore all of it. But that won't stop researchers and scientists who are dedicated to the research of space.